And so the first matchup that's going to be taking place in terms of the SEC on that Saturday is going to be Clemson taking on Texas. The Clemson team making the playoffs was controversial to some, right? They ended the season ranked number 16 in the nation, but they were able to get the 12 seed. Texas, who finished third in the CFP, given the 12-team format where the first 4 bids go to teams that are conference champions, and they get an automatic bye in addition to an automatic bid. Texas finds himself third in the CFP, but the 5 seed overall. So the highest rated seed that did not get a first round bye. They're going to be hosting their first ever playoff game, at least in DKR, Dale Carey Royal Stadium, 4 p.m. on Saturday. Texas is favored by 11.5. What are your thoughts early on looking at this Texas and Clemson matchup?
And again, one of the big pieces is the home field advantage. It's the biggest thing for this year. Really does favor Texas. Georgia did beat them at their stadium, but they're coming in at 11.5-point favorites. And looking back on the playoff to date, this is the 6th highest spread in the playoff. And anytime a team's been favored by 8 or more, they won the game. So Texas has a little bit of history on their side when it comes to that. And, Clemson has fallen in a couple of games this season, whereas Texas has really only lost to Georgia. It seems like Georgia has their number.
Yeah.
Early look, we'll get into the breakdown for it, but I do feel like Texas has too much for this Clemson team. Every game but playing against Georgia, they looked much more put together. It was just those games were kind of like the blips on what Texas has looked like this season.
Absolutely right. I mean, one of the keys to my game when you think about Texas has been keeping Quinn Ewers upright. And the only team that's really been able to force that pressure against him has been Georgia. Those 2 games, he's recorded some of his worst, QBR performances. He's also been sacked 11 times. So they've shown when you're able to put pressure on someone like Quinn, that's where, your Texas finds themselves fighting to win the game or losing the game. And that's what we saw against Georgia, both the first time they played and versus the last time they played. Texas played a little bit better in the conference championship game, but overall still domination from Georgia. And so for Quinn Ewers and for this offensive line led by Kelvin Banks, we obviously saw him win the Outland Trophy award. He's doing his part. What does Texas do to control the pass rush of Clemson when they've shown if you get pressure on Quinn, that is the formula for a team like Texas to find themselves going down?
Yeah, and TJ Parker is going to be a huge player for Clemson in this game on the pass rush side. He's got 12 sacks on the year, over 40 pressures. And that's the thing. Quinn Ewers is super susceptible to pressure. Whenever Georgia got pressure on him is when he fell apart a little bit, when they brought Arch in the first game, where I thought they were going to bring him into the second game a little bit earlier. And it's not necessarily maybe getting the pass put together for Texas. I think it's establishing the run. Both games in Georgia, they couldn't run the ball at all. So if they can establish the run, that opens up everything else. I think that Jaden Blue should get a couple more touches in this game, split with Wisner a little bit, and then hopefully it won't go that same way. But, they can't do what they've done in the past Georgia games with the run and only get, 50 yards or so.
Absolutely. I mean, the rushing attack for Texas is critical, right? You talked about Jaden Blue. He was the guy going into the season slated to be the guy. Contravion Wisner is the guy, over 800 yards. He's their leading rusher, but you need to see more from Blue in that tandem dual system. And maybe you might want to see more from Arch. Arch is sitting there 4th on the team in terms of rushing yards, 100 yards, 4 touchdowns. Maybe it's time for Slime to get out there and get him a touchdown.
I'm with you, man. I thought that they were going to bring him in more last week, and then they brought him in overtime for one play. And, it provides a little something from a playmaker standpoint. I think coming into the season, they thought maybe there would be more playmaking from Quinn Ewers. And it's from him, I think there's more reliance on his receiving core to be the playmakers. He put ball in the Georgia game in places where maybe receivers had to make a less than likely catch on it. And, Golden did that often in that game. I mean, he was a huge piece for this team. So, I think all the people around Ewers need to play well, or around Arch need to play well for them to be able to play well. Arch, maybe more than Quinn, isn't going to be the guy to take the entire rest of the team if they're not playing well and bring them up.
Absolutely. I mean, Quinn is definitely a big piece, and you talked about a little bit earlier, getting the rushing attack. We talked about as well with Contravion there for the team alongside Jaden Blue. On the other side of this game, a lot of talk has been about Cade Klubnik. He's sitting in top 3 and a lot of passing stats when it comes to the ACC, right? And this season, it's been quite a jump for him: 33 picks to 33 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Very large jump for him. His main kryptonite has been in terms of these SEC opponents. 2 of his 5 picks have come in those games one against South Carolina, and of course the really large one that happened against Georgia, the Malachi Starks kind of reverse interception. That is where he's shown a little bit of challenges, but overall, Cade has certainly stepped up this year when it comes to his passing and in some of his games. So, like, what do you expect this Texas defense to do to him? Because I know what guys like Colin is able to do on their side, Colin Simmons.
Yeah, it's the Texas defense is dangerous. They're going to shut down most of the passing attack that Clemson will have. That's what Texas is known for, one of the best pass defenses in the country, or really the best passing defense in the country, led by the best DB in the country, in Jahdae Barron. Cade Klubnik is good at passing. He's good at extending plays with his legs. He's really, another rushing asset for this team. So, it's from what the SEC can do and what this Texas team can do is just trying to shut off the weapons and stop him from, using his legs, extending plays. Antonio Williams is his favorite target. He's probably going to play out of the slot more. So Jahdae Barron's not going to have to worry about him.
Yep.
But that opens up some opportunity for Clemson to pass because they're operating out of the slot, which is a little bit more of an effective way to pass against Texas, honestly.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely more effective. And you talked about what this Texas team has been doing defensively. 19 picks on the year, second in the country. Clemson on the other side, though, I mean, they're sitting at 19th in the nation. I think they have about 14 or 15 picks. But for when it comes to Cade, the keys for him when it was against South Carolina, despite the loss, was his rushing abilities. Against SMU, I mean, he had a great game, 2 touchdowns. It just, can he do that against SEC competition? You talked about Antonio Williams being one of his top guys as well, 800 plus yards on the season. This team has primarily been operating on a pass first side. And a lot of that has been coming from Phil Maffa not being fully healthy. He's been kind of nursing that shoulder injury the past couple of games. And he started out the season pretty strong, right? I mean, his first 9 games, he had about 6 games over 100 yards. But that competition was, it was just, it was the Louisvilles, it was the Stanfords, it was the App States. Can we see him play a major piece for Clemson against top competition?
Yeah, and I think going into the year when we did our first preview, Clemson versus Georgia, like my expectations of him were that he was going to be a guy this year. He's still top 30 in the country from a rushing perspective, but
over 1,000 yards.
Scoreless in the last 5 games. You could take Citadel probably off that list because he didn't play much in that one, but still, if he's not going off or not performing in this game, I really don't think that Clemson can just pass first this game. I think that they have to establish run, whether it's Maffa, whether it's Cade Klubnik. I don't think that they can just pass. So I think the game really does come down to Phil Maffa, honestly, for Clemson, and if they can get him going. I think he can do it. We've seen him perform well in games. We've also seen him get shut down. So it's like a hit or miss on what you're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm right there with you. It's can he get going? Do they have the pieces to get him going? The stats that Cade has been putting up together this season have looked really impressive. It's just their challenge has been on third down and continuing drives. So statistically, he looks good. 33 touchdowns. We talked about it. Can he continue drives? Can the rushing attack play a role in that? We talked about the yards that Phil Maffa has had on a game-by-game basis this season. And on the Texas side, I mean, this defense is nasty. So we'll see, what guys like Michael Taffy can do on the safety side, highest graded, PFF grade guy for their team. What are they going to do against what Cade Klubnik can do in the passing game? And then behind Maffa, we look at other guys on their team. Their backup running back has less than 200 yards this season. So it's going to be coming down to him pretty much if they're going to have a good rushing attack this game. And Cade, who's been running a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's the key. The key to the game for both teams, to me, is honestly the same, and it's whoever can establish the run, because both teams maybe aren't the most prolific passing teams. I think Texas has more weapons in that regard, but there's opportunity for Quinn Ewers to falter. There's opportunities for Cade Klubnik to get shut down by this Texas defense. So whoever can establish the run, if Clemson can play their game offensively, they're going to have to take shots even if the coverage is tight. But Texas, if they can shut down the run, they know the defense will do what they do. I think, again, the home field advantage is a huge piece in this game. I was looking it up before, 64% of the games this year, the home teams won. I know that's kind of about average per season, but it matters. It matters a lot. It's going to be a tough environment in Austin. I like Texas.
Yeah. Look, if there's guys like, we talked about Sammy Brown and Barrett Carter that can slow down the Texas run, make Quinn Ewers beat you, Clemson has a game. If the run game gets going, if Quinn's getting going, if guys like Matthew Golden lead the team and from a receiving perspective get going, it's going to be a tough day for Clemson to match that, given what this Texas defense has done. I got Texas 28-14 this game.
All right. I like Texas 30-10. I think we both kind of low scoring on Clemson. Texas defense, very strong, best passing defense in the country, like we said. Can the Texas offense get going and look better than they did in the SEC championship? I think that'll be the key to the game. But a good matchup for the SEC, ACC in the playoffs.